want to do this. I want to spend this money on this thing. And he just goes along with it because he doesn't want to tell her no.
Well, that's where the delicate balance is, right?
And so it's an automatic no.
Right. That's very immature too.
Well, then I'm actually being controlled by you. Because you just have to do the opposite, and then you get me to dance however you want me to dance. You have influenced me to a degree that I'm making a choice that's against my own conscience or my own belief of what is correct based on the information that I have. He's going to make good judgment calls. He's not going to be afraid of losing people in his life that are not willing to meet those standards that he has for his life and his family and his relationship. He's not going to be afraid of that. So he's not going to change his values. Absolutely, yeah. And I think what it comes down to, again, we get into the weeds, but the complexity of it, which is related, is that a man can never change his mind or do something just because a woman has told him. He can never do that because he has to stand on his judgment 100%. Otherwise, she cannot trust him. If she can tell a guy that she doesn't like something that he's doing, and then he completely changes that.
But what if she explains it in a way he understands?
Right. So that's the difference, is taking it into account. And now he's like, oh, I understand what you're saying and I agree with you. And if he truly agrees with her, then he makes that decision and she's influenced him and it's great. Perfectly fine. What a lot of guys do is, again,
they just try to be peacemakers. Yeah.
Yes, peacemakers. They're afraid of losing the girl. She says, I don't like this, or whatever it is, or I want to do this. I want to spend this money on this thing. And he just goes along with it because he doesn't want to tell her no.
Well, that's where the delicate balance is, right? Like, you can't be a peacemaker, but you can't be controlling either. Like, you have to be, it has to be in the middle. Like, as a woman, if a man is just going to tell you no because he can't be influenced by a woman, I'm not saying that I'm trying to explain
I
this
got
part.
you. Yeah.
But if he's just going to say no just because he can't change his mind as a woman, you're not a good leader. You're not a good man. You're not who you think that you are. A good leader and a good man listens to what people have to say.
Right.
And I mean, a good person in general listens to what people has to say.
Right.
And can own up to the fact that they might change their perspective on something.
Yeah, because that's exactly the same. If I as a man am like, oh, I can't change my mind because you asked me to, and so it's an automatic no.
Right. That's very immature too.
Well, then I'm actually being controlled by you. Because you just have to do the opposite, and then you get me to dance however you want me to dance. You see what I'm saying? Because I'm not actually still relying on my judgment. Right? Because as a woman, you want to test
insecurity too.
Right. As a woman, you want to test me as a man. You want to know two things. One, that I'm not going to do things just because
under pressure.
Right. You want to know that I'm not going to do things just because you want me to. But you also want to know that I'm not going to use a double negative, not do things just because you don't want me to. Right? It's like you can't control me either way. Otherwise, I'm weak. You have to know that I'm listening to what you have to say. But at the end of the day, I'm taking that into account and making a judgment call, relying on my judgment. I think
the information that you have.
Exactly. From that. It can't come from a place of I'm doing it for any other reason than I think this is the right choice. If you feel like you have influenced me to a degree that I'm making a choice that's against my own conscience or my own belief of what is correct based on the information that I have, then you know I'm weak. And you know you can't trust me, and you know you can't trust anything that I'm saying or doing, then you can't trust my leadership because you know that anyone can influence me because I'm afraid of the consequences, as opposed to I'm making a judgment call based on what I actually believe is the correct thing to do, right?
Right.
Any leader, if they're making a judgment call based on, people influencing them, being lobbied against versus this is the actual correct thing to do, then you can't trust them. So that's why there is a difference with the liking part there. But ultimately, it's about the insecurity versus security. A secure man that knows and trusts his own decisions and trusts that he's going to make good judgment calls. He's not going to be afraid of losing people in his life that are not willing to meet those standards that he has for his life and his family and his relationship. He's not going to be afraid of that. So he's not going to change his values in order to avoid the pain of loss. And that's what it comes down to. And when we look at that scenario with that guy in the email, he was changing his values. He was misrepresenting his values in order to avoid the loss. That's why he called her up and tried to get back with her and all this stuff. It's like, look, if you're at a party and you are telling a girl that you're dating, hey, be careful when she's drinking too much. And then she gets upset and calls you controlling, all that stuff. And then you still want to get back together with her. And you're still trying to get her to, like, you should just be like, wow, I had a concern for you. And I tried to voice it in a nice way. I'm going to leave. And then it's up to her to, if she wants to come to you and say, oh, I'm sorry, that was a way overreaction. I had a bad relationship before where my husband was controlling and I shouldn't have, I know that you're just trying to look out. Let her repair that. Otherwise, you're like, hey, I have standards and respect for myself. Even if you've screwed up to that point, he could have still recovered by doing that. But that's what I'm saying about the whole thing. It all comes down to respect for yourself and security. If you're coming from an insecure place, you will always make the wrong choices. Everything you say will always be wrong. You will always end up on the line, on the side of control.
Well, it's not forcing anybody to do anything. That's really the key, is like having the boundary rather than these rules or whatever you're trying to put in place. But yeah, it just sounds like he's definitely a people pleaser and he doesn't want to lose her. And the thing that these sort of guys have an issue with that they don't even realize that's repelling women from them is, like you said, he said ish that he had a boundary or he got upset about something, but then now he's begging her to come back.
Right.
That just makes a woman or a person in general feel like it doesn't matter about you as a person, that they just need somebody.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Like that you're not special. They just like got upset with you, and instead of holding their boundary and like actually acting on what they said, if they have a boundary, now they're just running back to you, even though you did something that upset them.
Right.
Now you can't really trust them because you're like, well, weren't you not going to be in a relationship with somebody that acted this way? Now, because even if you have a boundary, right? And you say that, that's why the key is that you have to follow through, because plenty of people also be like, this is my boundary. And then the person breaks it and they're like, well, do you want to still be together? Like, you know, or like, no, I still want to be with you. It's like, okay, now that person can't take you seriously. They don't respect you as much because you went against your own word.
Exactly. Like, and you were the one who did it. If you had a boundary and someone broke the boundary and then you did what you said you were going to do. And then they came to you and said, I'm really sorry.
That's different.
And then you said, okay,
this is still the boundary.
This is still the boundary, right? That can even happen a couple of times. I mean, you have to use your discretion there, whether you feel like they're actually sincere. But what I'm saying is
it
that
depends on the boundary too.
That's different. That's different than you, than them violating the boundary and you saying,
and you chase them.
Yeah, or you're like, okay, one more try. I'll give you one more chance. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Then it's weak, pathetic. Then it means nothing, right? So so you can, but there's a difference between those things. And so. Yeah.
But that's the key, is to actually walk away.
And remember,
if you need to.
She married the controlling asshole. She broke up with the nice guy that you know, again, I'm not saying.
Well, she got divorced.
Well, but she married the guy. What I'm saying is that, but she immediately broke up with the nice guy.
She was forced to marry him. It was a rule. You have to marry me.
But she chose to stay with that guy for however long. What I'm saying is, though, immediately she broke up with the guy that presented his weakness. So what I'm saying is that it's not right, but a woman would rather be with a strong man that says what he wants and is clear about it than a wishy-washy guy who's a pushover. And, you know, even if he's a jerk or an asshole, I'm not saying you should be a jerk or an asshole, don't get me wrong, but I'm just saying that, like, just understand this, men that are watching, that being the guy that is insecure and is afraid of losing the girl and is doing all these things to try and keep her or to, you know, that's always going to make you lose the girl. She's going to lose respect for you, right?
Yeah.
She's going to pick and that's why guys wonder, like, why does she pick the asshole? Because the asshole doesn't care what other people think. Because he might be an asshole, and she'd rather not be with an asshole. She'd rather be with a kind guy, but
he still has to have balls.
But at least she respects the asshole, you know, to a degree, until she does.
Because he does what he says he's going to do, even though he doesn't care about other people.
Exactly. So
the other guy will just chase you no matter what you do.
Yeah.
And so you don't feel special. That's what I'm trying to say is like,
or safe.
You don't, yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so it's like, you don't want that. Better than